Welcome to this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have James Wellington. He's CEO of Amla Agency, co-founder Australia's largest online digital marketing school, creator of the Neural Unlock method. Welcome to the show, James.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, AJ. It's great to be here.
You are welcome. Welcome to the show, James. Welcome to India in this online form. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit from what we are going to talk right now. We'll learn from you how one can scale their business, get a lot of sales through psychology. We'll learn all that. But before that, James, let's learn a bit more about you, your journey, your background, so that the audience knows who they are listening to.
Terrific. So I've been in the online space for almost 8 years now. So I've actually been fortunate to, start a business before COVID, experience COVID, and have extreme growth through COVID. I know not a lot of people get to say that, but fortunately it was that sliding door moment. But I've been in the online space for coming into my 8th year this year, scaled. Well, now it's 8 companies to above 7 figures, 1 company to above 8 figures, and have been responsible as a CRO and also a co-owner and CEO for around about $53 million in our online education and high ticket programs. So very fortunate, very blessed. We've had some great successes here in Australia, US, UK. So India is one of our next frontiers. So it's great to be on today and knowing that we're going to be able to give value to the Indian market, which I'm super grateful for. So hi guys. Something that I'm very passionate about is the psychology of understanding human beings. I feel like a lot of people in business tend to overlook that they're speaking to a human being, and this, conversation can actually really spark a lot of interest for people. We're not talking to leads or customers or consumers, we're actually talking to another human being. So one thing I'm passionate about to speak about today is, understanding that person at a far deeper level, from their conscious beliefs to their unconscious beliefs, and how you can align all parts of your business to really, evoke a customer to make a decision, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. So, James, let's come straight to you talk about psychology of sales. What is this psychology of sales? I thought people buy because they need something that it, fulfills some need of theirs. So help us understand about this whole thing called psychology of sales.
For sure. I find for a lot of people in sales, we try to force the need of the product versus identifying the actual need of the core root of the desire for that product. I find a lot of salespeople, a lot of marketers, they'll overhype and they'll try to sell through the benefits. So what we generally tend to do is utilize both the emotional side of things, the future progression of who the person will become, as opposed to influencing someone from a buying decision of what is it that can do, how can it do it, how long will it take, etc. So a lot of analytical sales tactics are in the marketplace, whereas at the end of the day, 90% of communication, between 90 to 93% of communication is nonverbal. So it says to me that, if you look at it from a psychological perspective, for those of you listening today, a lot of what you're hearing will be evoked by emotion. When we see things, we read things, it's like, how does our brain consciously make a decision, then pass that information back to the unconscious to then influence ourselves to buy? So the psychology of sales to me is a lot more in depth than just sitting there benefit stacking and trying to make your thing look different to everybody else's thing, but more so, how can the customer, the human being, benefit what you do?
Right. So help us understand a bit more in detail, James, so that if someone from 2-3 sides, one is from the company side itself, that okay, This is what we need to teach our salespeople so that they understand it better. Okay, and then they are able to implement. Second part is, from the salesperson side also, that, okay, this is something which is going to help me. Okay, and third part is also from the customer side, that this guy is not trying to do some hypnotherapy, but rather actually trying to help me out. How do you look at that part of the psychology of sales from 3 different angles at the same time?
Love that. From the company perspective, the main one that I believe a lot of companies have is a disconnect between the sales and marketing team, and generally the sales, marketing team, and operations. So one thing we do inside of all of our organizations and businesses that we own, but also work with, is get that cohesive pattern occurring. you know, having marketing talk to sales, talking to operations and delivery. Because what you can find is that I find a lot of CEO founders, a lot of entrepreneurs that have, you know, developed the product, they're very obsessed with how the product's different. But the buying psychology in the marketplace changes based upon the needs of that person in that time. So, for example, you're selling, you know, one of our biggest programs was Digital Marketing School, which has over 12,000 students across Australia and New Zealand. And the psychology of how we started that was very much, you know, here's a skill set you can learn very quickly versus COVID hit in 2019, 2020. That psychology changed. It was very much desperation in the marketplace. There was people losing jobs, people losing freedom. And then fast forward to 2022, 2023, if we'd kept the same message that was from 2018, 2019, all the way through to 2023, people were like, well, I now don't want to go back to work. So we have this constant feedback loop between marketing, sales, operations that identifies the needs for the customer. Then one thing from the company to the salesperson perspective is helping the salesperson to be the direct arrowhead for the information they're receiving. Because I find a lot of the times the company will be like, just sell it, just sell it, just sell it. And the poor salesperson sitting there being like, you're not listening to what I'm hearing. You know, I've had 100 calls this week, or I've done, you know, 1,000 calls this month, and I've spoken to all these different people, but I go to give that feedback back to the company, and the company's like, well, that's not how this product should be sold. But the salesperson is your arrowhead. So from a company to a sales perspective, it's understanding that human needs change daily. You know, we live in a technological day and age. Think about all the influence of social media. Think about all the influences of every single platform people are on. Human brains are no longer actually patterned like they once were. Go back to the 70s, 60s, 80s, 50s, 40s, even way back to, you know, generations prior to that. You know, people would have belief systems that would stay the same, but beliefs and emotions change instantly based upon the influence of social media. Now, in relation to the third question, for those that you're speaking with as customers, it's identifying for the consumer. It's not some hypnotherapy or anything like that, but it's actually speaking with them on a deeper emotional level. Like, so I tend to teach our teams and our businesses to ask questions around why. There's a great book about it. It all starts with why, you know, the connection of why. There's a lot of information. Like, why is something important? Whereas I feel if you're selling through what and how, you're missing the disconnect between why does that person want to buy. So for those of you listening today, I'll ask that question and it'll evoke an emotion in you. Why are you listening to this podcast? Versus what can you gain from this? How good will this be? How good will the information? How will it transform me? Why are you on here today? And as I've asked that question, I can 100% guarantee there's emotion that you've either looked at your past that you're trying to change, or there's an emotion towards your future of who you're wanting to become. So understanding that question why attaches to either a past you're looking to change or a future you're looking to create. And that question is far more beneficial than this is what we do, this is how we do it, which is benefit stacking. So that emotion for a consumer perspective, a human being is asking why. So that's probably my answer to those three. Hopefully that gives a good
yes. Let's understand it a bit more better from a different perspective. Now you talk also about psychology of marketing.
Yep.
What is the psychology of marketing? Are the psychology of sales and by psychology of marketing have to be on the same side? Are they on the same side? What is the disconnect? Why is the disconnect? Do we first need to bring, the same sort of training and understanding to both the sides for scaling a business and achieving business success?
Most definitely. I feel like there's a disconnect, especially when you're dealing with multiple departments. You know, the CEO, the owner, the director, the founder, the people that started the business want everyone to get along. You know, they want everybody to get along. But when you're growing large teams in either marketing or sales, what you find with a lot of, I guess, SMEs, small to medium-sized enterprises, as opposed to large corporate, is their communication channels aren't open. And then you might get someone set in their ways that, this is how we've marketed it from the day it began, the day of inception of this business or product. And you'll get a new salesperson in and they'll generally try to lead blame or they'll try to market blame. So one thing we focus on is whenever we work with businesses, we always take care of marketing and sales. They are the lifeblood of the business. A business without leads is just an idea. A business without sales is just a business literally as an idea. They're both just an idea. It doesn't change. You need both to work in cohesion. So what we like to do is have both departments working in the same way. So with marketing, it's actually getting the feedback from your front line. So a lot of customers, you'll see a lot of businesses, there's some large corporates, I won't mention names, but you sometimes think, you're like, how out of touch are they with their marketplace? There's been some massive rebrands and some huge corporate enterprises now, and I've worked with some large corporate marketers and I've worked with some large corporate sales teams, and it's like, why did that occur? Where was the disconnect between this person sitting behind a computer or in a marketing meeting versus the person on the front line? So I know there's been many, many times where CEOs have went from being a company and they've done like an undercover boss, and they've went in to see what's it like on the front line? What are my customers saying? So having marketing receive that information and not having like an underlying egoic agenda around it, but being like, hey, this is valuable for the growth of the company, is something we instill with all our businesses and all the businesses we work with. Get them working hand in hand. Both understand the psychology.
Right. So what should the owner of a company do, especially if it's a mid-sized or small business? How should they get these two people together, two sides together? Because ultimately, these people are just doing their job. They will change companies, but the owner will be at a loss if they do not bring those things together in whatever way it works for them. How do they do this?
I think the biggest thing is setting up the communication channels between all departments. There's in an organization, and depending on whether it's small, medium enterprise, or even through to large corporates, the further the disconnect comes between the businesses or the departments of the business, the further disconnect comes from the business. So actually having open communication channels. Now, I know personally a few people that have worked inside Apple, Microsoft, Google, like very large companies, and they speak about, having the meeting 90% of the time speaking about innovation, growth, and ideas, versus a lot of small to medium-sized enterprises 90% of the time working about what to do and how to do it. So if you can take that approach from like a large corporate, like say your Google or your Apple, 90% of time around ideas, innovation, and making this better, and 10% about implementation, what's good for them is also good for, us starting out. I still consider myself a small to medium business. I'll never lose that energy until, billions of dollars later. Maybe I might say I'm a large company, but at this point, I'm still an SME myself. And it's like, I think having that approach to allow your company and your employees to be a part of the vision is so important. So having them all having communication and not letting it be squashed or falling upon deaf ears is definitely a recommendation I'd make.
Right. Tell us a bit about your neural unlock method. Sounds very scientific, very, lot of things to do with brain, but help us understand if we'll be able to understand it.
Awesome. So the neural unlock method is the approach that you're not pushing someone to make a decision, but you're unlocking parts of their unconscious biases in order to help them to make the decision themselves. I find a lot of modern sales tactics and even older sales tactics that are now being reinvented or reinvigorated are very much about how you can double bind and corral the person in. And it's very forceful, like, I'm going to close that person. I even say to our team, I'm like, I don't like them being called closers, that closer, I closed that deal. No, you had an articulate conversation with someone and helped them see. So the neural unlock method is around speaking to the different elements of the brain. So the conscious, the unconscious, and the subconscious. Now, a lot of people think that the unconscious, subconscious are the same, but my background in psychology, so I've studied my master's in NLP, Tony Robbins Medanis, human psychology, mastering in sport and performance psychology. I love the human brain. It's just, it makes me tick. Looking at the answers from a sales perspective is a lot of the time the person will tell you what they want versus you influencing them to think what they want. So taking that backward step is a more conversational sales tactic and a more evoking of emotion versus influencing of thought is what the neural unlock method teaches, is helping someone to unlock those components of the brain for them to go, this is a great decision. What it also does will, for anyone listening, if you're having this problem, it will reduce refunds in your business. One thing you don't want to do is have a very forceful sales team, but have a huge attrition rate where business and clients drop off a month later. That's not a business. That's That's a forceful salesperson. We don't want that. We want a long-term sustainable business.
Right, James. Let's look at it from a customer point of view. If it's about psychology, and many a times you see several people just in several industries, you see insurance,
Yep.
medical, it's about creating that fear factor.
Yep.
Somewhat like rightly also, but when you create that fear rather than informing people, that is also another point, level of psychology. Even in
Mm.
terms of advertising also, it depends on how what they do, but in different ways of creating that sense of, I don't know how good or bad that psychology part is.
Mm.
Should sales also be like that, just to understand the psychology of the person when he is ready to buy, how is ready, rather than looking at what the customer's needs are and then actually solving it? Because the salesperson may be good, but the company's bosses might be breathing down his neck to make that sale, and he will be forced to do it because he or she will need that particular job. Where does the psychology part ensure that the customer is well taken care of, that he only gets what he needs, rather than uh, brain twisted, not arm twisted, into buying
Yeah.
something which is not be the best for him or her?
That's where a lot of marketing can really make a big difference to a business. A lot of businesses do cold outreach. They'll have business development. So, a lot of businesses will just all of a sudden call somebody out of the blue, and they won't spend much on the actual digital side, getting qualified leads. So that's why we work on having the quality of customer, the quality of lead with buying intent coming in. I say this to a lot of, salespeople inside of our organization, the business we work with. If you're getting inbound leads and these leads have come in, there's been some part of their unconscious that has a buying intent. Versus if you're cold calling and outbounding, I think gone are those days. Now, don't get me wrong, there are amazing industries that still works well in. And I definitely have businesses that we do that cold calling in. But I much prefer to have a buying lead come in with buying intent that has been influenced through psychology of marketing, that has, I guess, identified a problem that we can offer a solution for. But also too, I know you mentioned insurance. I think a lot of insurance, they do sell based upon fear. Like, if you don't have life insurance, do you want your family to be left with XYZ debt when you pass? Like things like that. Versus what if you were to look at from a prevention education perspective? Are you somebody that has a high amount of assets? Are you somebody that has a high amount of net worth? Are you somebody that is looking towards leaving your family with a legacy and then educating them on the possible benefits versus calling them up and saying, you're getting old, you might pass away, don't leave your family without a life insurance? But the education of what you could do. Did you know that you may save XYZ on taxes if you were to have XYZ in life insurance? Education towards prevention through marketing would be so much more powerful for businesses like that versus the fear-mongering tactics. And then all of a sudden the person goes, I don't really want this. I was pushed into it. Again, we want to keep customers to look at their lifetime value for the lifetime of their actual value in your business.
Right. So in the backdrop of the psychology of sales, what makes a good offer? Is it about luring the customer, or is it about giving a better value to customer in terms of whatever the offer is? What is a good offer in today's time?
It's always value first. If you can solve a problem for the customer, it's always about the value. It's not about influencing the customer to think there's a problem. So like we did mention with insurance, if you actually give the actual solution for the customer versus telling them there's a problem, those types of customers are not going to be the long-term customers of your business. If you can get a core foundation of customers that genuinely need your product and service, those customers will grow your business far greater than a bunch of people that are influenced to buy for no apparent reason. If you can get a foundation of your first 1,000 customers, because I think something that's often overlooked is if the offer doesn't make sense to you, as simple as it would if you're a 5-year-old, how's it going to make much sense to your customer? And from a perspective of thinking about it, having the customers have a lot of logical sense plus a lot of emotional buy-in will create what we call raving fans. Once you lay the foundations of your business, the same as a home, you can develop the stories of the house in your business.
Right. James. Now, let me understand, as we stand in 2025, just 6th day of 2025.
Yeah.
What would or how should a salesperson of 2025 be as of today? Will it be different than 2024? Because how do you see this trend going on in terms of customers, in terms of the salesperson who would like to talk to one another, not avoid each other?
Yeah, agreed. So I think the biggest thing in 2025, and it's been a bit of a trend recently, is that people are busy. Gone are the days, where we did have a window where a lot of people were in lockdown. I lived in Melbourne myself, so I know lockdown quite severely. A lot of salespeople think that you can just follow up. Like you've just started a new year. Look at it from 2025. Don't take the same energy that you had in 2024. With the sales breath, and the desperation to get that deal before Christmas and New Year. But just taking a refreshed energy, because you've got to think, especially now in January, as this podcast is being recorded, people are very optimistic. There's a lot of different ways. I think for the whole year to justify in one statement would be wrong, but the seasons of the year, right now you're in New Year. So if you're listening to this as a salesperson in now January, February, March, you've got your first quarter of the year. You should be looking to help give benefit to someone. So give value first versus I followed you up all of last year and you never answered. So for this year, have a new invigorated energy towards that same person, and they will match that back to you as well.
Right, James. Now tell us a bit about your agency, Amala Agency, if I'm pronouncing that correct.
Yeah. So Amala Agency. So it was actually, the name itself was named after my mum, Amanda Delani. She lost her life in 2006 due to breast cancer, unfortunately. But I'm half Italian. So anyone watching this podcast, if you see the video, I don't look Italian, but I am half Italian. It is actually an Italian word, and her name was Amanda Delani. And I'm also a devout Christian. So I was praying, on the name of my company moving forward. And it came to me, it was like the word Amala. And I looked it up and I found out it actually meant to love and to love her in Italian. And then in Hindu and Arabic, it actually means beacon of light, wisdom, and hope. And I was like, thank you, God. Like, I believe this is what I want to be for the world. This is who I want to be. I want to be, someone that shows love to others, but also a beacon of light, wisdom, and hope to, give businesses that hope that someone is there to support them. So Amala, we're a business. So our main focus isn't just sales. We actually specialize in sales and marketing, but we're actually we're becoming one of the world leaders in innovative business solutions. So we've got, finance, we've actually got insurance, funnily enough, that we use that as an example. We've got payment gateways, we've got technology, we've got fintech, we've got all different things that we specialize in. But marketing and sales was how we started. So Amala is definitely a broad scope consulting business, but also innovative business solutions. So anyone listening to this, if you need some solutions, we can definitely sort you out with whatever you need, or we can steer in the direction to help.
Absolutely. And also about your digital marketing school.
Awesome. So my business partner, Scott Waddell, and I, we started that in 2019. It was originally, he had another business partner who then I came in and we started the business together, restarted it. It actually became Australia's largest. I don't know the numbers now currently because we haven't been marketing it as aggressively, but we have about 12,000 students across Australia, New Zealand, and parts of the US. We very much help people to learn the fundamentals and the basics of, digital marketing. So Facebook, Instagram, Google, SEO, YouTube ads, like very simple for those people that want to start their own marketing agency. But we also work with businesses that want to get better at marketing. But it's very much if you're looking to start a business today or tomorrow, digital marketing is definitely, a great business. That's something that we very much want to help people to start.
Wonderful, James. There is much to learn about all these things, about psychology of marketing, psychology of sales, and about digital marketing. So for all those people who would want to learn from you, learn about your companies, what's the best way for them to do so?
So I'm on Facebook, LinkedIn, and also Instagram. Instagram's got myself and my team in there. So if anyone wants to add me on Instagram, obviously being in the digital space, I should have more of a LinkedIn presence, but I actually prefer Instagram and Facebook. Add me on Instagram, James Wellington Official, at James Wellington Official. That's the easiest way. I'm always active on there. I've always got team members monitoring my DMs. If there's a will, there's a way. And if you have a will to work with us, we'll always find a way. So we're very open to helping with solutions for anyone that needs anything from starting a business through to growing a business to 6, 7, 8, and even 9 figures.
Wonderful. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Awesome.